I'll just draw your attention to the orange card. Karakia on there, which starts with the first line, whakataka te hau. You set the volume, I'll set the mito or the pace.
Whakataka te hauru
Ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi a ke ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauru, ti he maumona.
Our other official language, cease the winds from the south.
Cease the winds from the south.
Let the breeze blow over the ocean.
Let the breeze blow over the ocean.
Let the red of dawn come with a sharpened ear, a touch of frost, and a promise of a glorious day.
Let us know we're alive.
Might I just applaud that the Māori part was just spot on, 10 out of 10. The English part was a bit like
You actually got it wrong.
I always do. That's why I rely on you. And just, Chair, just through, I just want to make an announcement that we have someone who's celebrating a birthday today. And at some point, Chair, you might want to lead if we're going to sing happy birthday. But over here we have someone who's turned the year again.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Jess. You finally turned 27, so that's good. Are you bringing some birthday cake for Smoko?
I haven't. I've failed on that front, sorry.
Not your responsibility.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Patty, and I'd like to welcome everyone here also today, all our staff who are here. And do we have any apologies? I don't have any, do I? No, there are no apologies. Notices. Oh, Councillor Curtin, sorry, yes, he had to go to the off for a personal matter. So he did say
Is there an apology?
so here's an apology, but he'll return, I expect. Are there any notices? I have one notice. This is a really long, it looks like a long agenda, but actually, as you've all read it thoroughly, you can see that it's actually quite a simple agenda. There's a couple of delicate points in it, but mostly it's issues that we have agreed upon or discussed in the past. So if we can just get through this without too many Churchillian speeches, I would really appreciate it. And we've got a big day ahead of us because you can see down here we're not expected to end before 5 o'clock. And James, having no confidence in us, suggested if we do get to the Coastal Hazards Funding Workshop, meaning he didn't think we would, but we are going to because it's really important that we do. So
Sure is.
Let's just keep some discipline, and I will as well.
Well, you're the chair, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I know, but I
in
don't
your
like to
hands.
hurt people's feelings. But I'm going to today.
When did that start?
Okay, item 2, conflict of interest declarations. Oh, welcome, Huggy. Good to see you, mate. Love your shirt. What are you up there, Mr. Barker?
Waiting for my computer to be logged in.
Ah.
The password is ridiculously long.
Any conflict of interest declarations? Yes.
Just in regards to the remuneration for the Māori committee, Māori Standing Committee, especially in regards to the chair's remuneration, it does have a direct reflection on us both.
Okay, well,
Marco, myself as well.
okay, we'll note that, but I don't think it's so specific that you should stand down on the vote. Okay, thank you very much. We'll note those conflicts of interest. So confirmation of the minutes of the 24th of June. I've just read them again. Are there any adjustments to those minutes? Therefore, do we have a mover to accept those minutes? Haniwai and Sheriff. All those in favour of receiving those minutes and accepting them? Aye. It's passed, thank you very much. Follow-ups from the previous meeting.
Take those as read, Chair, and any questions from councillors?
Any questions on the follow-ups?
Well, I've got some notes, but I can't access them because I can't go.
Oh, I can see you're looking very, the fingers are going too, you know. There is, Jeff?
Yeah, I've got a question. People and capability, point 14.
Sorry, councillor, I think that relates to the organisational performance report. Which
Sorry.
is the next item.
I do have one point, Chair.
That's right, well, I missed the floor. Leave it there.
That is that I noticed when we went through, went through it, there's quick information I asked for, which I thought would normally be circulated, but I'd see from the thing it's posted on Interstellar, and it's then by connection to a hyperlink. But when I went onto the machine, even when I was working on my home Wi-Fi, the hyperlink didn't work. So the thing about this is that the IT system is supposed to give us access and give us not to be a barrier. And the system, in my view, is not performing. It is a barrier to our information. And someone needs to get hold of it and fix it.
Thank you, Rick. We won't do any more talk on that, but I think we got the people who need to get the message have got the message.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, did we move the minutes of both 24 June and 15 July just before?
So what you want?
No, we didn't do 15 July.
It's automatically. I don't even have a clue.
No, we didn't. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
So we do have two lots of minutes. I apologise for that. We have minutes of the 15th of July. Do we have?
Move that though.
Yep, and I'll second.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Henry. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 Passed. Thank you very much. I think we will just move to item 5, significant activities.
So again, Chair, we'll take these as read and take any questions from councillors.
My councillors?
Yeah, just to comment on
Sheriff.
point 14. My mouse drove a bit too fast on my behalf. Talking about driving. So you actually undertaking some driving, as in how our staff are using their HBRC vehicles and
So-
doing retraining in that particular area?
All staff, upon induction through, not immediately obviously because we run rounds of driver training, we put all of our staff through driver training, given that we have pool vehicles available for staff to use, so
Okay.
not just staff who have vehicles allocated to them. Any staff member might be using a council vehicle at some time, and so we do a basic driver training program with them. And then for those staff that are doing off-road driving, there's more advanced driver training provided. In this case, what we're really doing is running an awareness campaign around driver safety within the organisation, because we do from time to time have issues with speeding of council vehicles that is recorded through our vehicle tracking system, and so we just remind staff of their legal obligations and also of our concern for their safety and well-being.
Okay. And I'm getting on my bike again. My wife got almost run over by HDC service vehicle and shouted at and sworn at, and she was in an absolute right to bike where she biked. And so, taking into consideration when I drive myself, we actually don't have much vision on bikers. We've got these bike lanes, and so I would really say that our staff need to become aware of it, because this will become, after COVID-19, there's more bikers on the way, and very little training is given in that particular area. Either opening doors or actually turning without actually using your left mirror, who's on the inside of you. And so it's just an awareness that we need to
Okay, we'll
become
take that
safer in that regard.
We'll take that on board in terms of the training, Jeff. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that to the party. Uppy?
Follow-up question. Do councillors also and committee members have access to the pool of vehicles, and will they be undergoing any training? Just out of curiosity. I expect no, but...
If a vehicle was required to attend council business for a councillor, then we would be willing to make a pool vehicle available. Yep, that's something we can do.
And have done in the past.
I think a preference would be to would be that there was training, just so we're fulfilling our health and safety obligations, if that's able to be achieved. But given how infrequently councillors typically use pool vehicles, that's probably not something we would program and automatically as part of councillor induction.
No point. Thank you very much.
Anyway.
Kia ora, Ian. This one's for you, point 22, the riparian planting and the erosion control plan. Could you let us know within which catchments and how many landowners are involved in the scheme for this year?
Morena, Councillor. Yeah, it certainly can. Obviously not off the top of my head, but I can provide you that information.
You'll come back to anyway on that.
Is that correct?
You happy with that?
Thank you.
Thank you anyway, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Liz, item 69. 130 pre-applications in for Tuki out of.
So that represents approximately 70% of the required total. I checked that this morning in anticipation of a question around that. So we've engaged with both primary stakeholder groups for them to continue to remind people of their obligations and even just the ability to lodge a Form A. But we're also now handing it over to the compliance staff as well to follow up.
Follow-up question, Chair. Is there any thought or survey queries done as to those ones that haven't submitted yet, and could it be waiting on the minor change to Plan 6?
So no, the short answer is no. We haven't specifically followed up with why people haven't submitted. There will be, I'm expecting, some who are looking at Plan Change 6A to be able to submit their application, but in actual fact, Form A is a very basic, just almost a pre-application, and can be amended if there are changes as a result of Plan Change 6A.
Any other items?
Is this going to be addressed at some stage, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I guess we are. We missed that.
It's not on the agenda, but we'll do that at the end of the meeting.
We might do that. Michelle, I might get you to go and sit around next to Will. I reckon that would be a better place for you. I'll get your question out and then I'd like you to move because I definitely can't see you there.
It's about the northern catchment and the work that's been done for erosion around.
Which item was that?
It doesn't have a number, but I think it's worth a mention because it's a really good project. The erosion work that's been done around our awa, especially around our urupa, our marae, and I was in I sent some photos through. We were in a planting project in Kihitu. That regional council has done a lot of work on, and so it's a really good kaupapa, and it'll be good to see it in here. It's not a PGF, but it's there were like all up we had 110 tamariki there yesterday, and it was a really good project to be a part of.
Thanks, Michelle. Now, do you want to move?
Yep.
I'll second it. No, sorry.
Are there any other questions? Our activities? If not, can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Craig. Second, Hanewai. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you very much. Item 6, call for minor items not on the agenda. We have Mike and then Craig. Mike.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in regards to the Three Waters consultation with Tangata Whenua.
So, Three Waters.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Craig.
Government announcement about Lake Onslow.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Onslow. Yeah. Anyone else?
Didn't know Onslow was in the area. Sure. Okay.
Councillors, one of the things we didn't resolve is are there any issues from outside bodies that councillors sit on that you want to report on? Because it is on the agenda, but we were so absorbed with other subjects we didn't resolve that. So if you can give some thought to that, and if any of you wish to report, that would be really good. It's outside this one. Okay. So then we'll move to item 7, which is the first decision, adoption of our annual plan.
Thank you, Chair. So it is our pleasure to present Council with the annual plan for the 2020-21 year. As a reminder, particularly for the public, on the 11th of March, Council held a workshop at which time Council was planning to not consult on the annual plan and to simply proceed with the year 3 of the long-term plan and the 7.3% rates increase that had been programmed into that. Subsequently, the COVID-19 lockdown situation developed, and Council asked for further advice around options for a different approach to the annual plan that would deliver a zero average rates increase across the board for ratepayers, and to consider what council funding could be repurposed for supporting economic recovery from COVID-19. Subsequently, council made decisions to consult on both of those matters, and we had a good number of submissions, of 118 submissions, and held a range of online meetings and a submissions process. And at the resolution of that, the councillors present have made a recommendation through to council that we do indeed adopt the annual plan based on the preferred council options with respect to both the zero rates increase and creating a $1 million COVID recovery fund. So that has now been incorporated into the revised financials for the annual plan. And perhaps just a final thing I would note, of course, that the council is proposing in today's decision to adopt an annual plan that does not have a balanced budget with respect to our operating expenditure exceeding our revenue for the year, which will necessitate additional borrowing on top of the borrowing which had already been planned. So just over $7 million worth of additional borrowing, on bringing us to total borrowings for the year of just over $19 million. So the paper does foreshadow the fact that in the 2021-22 year, there will be a need to work towards rebalancing and getting to a fully balanced budget. And based on the increasing levels of service that are contained within this annual plan and the current long-term plan and the funding of that, there will be further rates increases required in out years as a consequence of adopting this strategy. So the document itself has been well consulted with the community, and Council has undertaken several rounds of deliberations on this, and it is now finalised and ready for formal adoption, and then to be followed by the setting of the rates. We have included within the papers a draft policy which we're going to continue to work with Council on around the $1 million recovery fund, and at the present point in time that remains draft as we finalise Council's preference on that, also in conjunction with understanding what funding might be available from central government for various COVID-related recovery works. And we'll adopt a policy at a later date once Council has satisfied itself that the policy is appropriate. That's all from me. Is there anything you want to add, Jess?
No, I think you've covered it.
Thank you, James. So we've thrashed this to death and we've consulted on it, and this is the final result. Is there any other questions for James or Jess? Martin, do you have one?
It's a technical question, Mr. Chairman. I just didn't really understand the equalisation process referred to paragraphs 23.2, 23.3, that where properties are in more than one territorial authority, there is an equalisation, and this is in a higher proportion of value in Hastings. Can someone just unpack that a little bit for me? I understood that Hastings had been revalued, and so the zero increase actually translated in practical terms to a rates increase for some Hastings properties, but just a little bit more about the equalisation process, please.
I might call on, we've got Bronda down the back here who might be able to provide a better explanation than I might be able to
come
give.
into here, Bronda, into Neil's seat. You might keep Neil's seat.
An upgrade. By-election.
Thank you, Chair.
The equalisation process goes through and looks at the land value that comes around from that revaluation, and because the other areas haven't been revalued at the same time, the equalisation process takes into account how that impacts it and adjusts it to ensure that it's remaining in balance, because otherwise you end up with some quite large peaks and troughs because the revaluation has happened in one space but not in the others. And it's around equalising those across the whole region. I can give you a further.
No, I think I get it's to sort of soften the blow of only one district within the region going through revaluation.
That's correct.
Thank you, that will do.
Just another question to that. So the softening, is that up or down?
It's depends. So at the moment there was a movement between what happened with Hastings and had a particular impact in Napier. But the idea from that is to ensure that the relativity based on what would have happened if we had done a revaluation across all of the region remains the same.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a mover to receive and consider the annual plan for adoption? Craig will move. Do we have a seconder? Sheriff will second. Craig, do you wish to speak?
Briefly, Chair, just I think and acknowledge everyone that's come and produced this plan in a pretty challenging period of months, and the work and discussions and compromises that have gone around this table and others to lead us to these final recommendations.
Thank you, Craig. Sheriff, do you wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? If Uppy, do you?
If I can, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just want to also acknowledge something that's sort of not mentioned in the forefront of the annual plan, and that's around how staff were divided during the pandemic, meeting social and welfare needs in our communities at the same time while finishing this off. So just wanted to pay acknowledgement to the level of work that perhaps isn't clear to our residents around how we got to the point where we are today.
Thank you, Uppy. We greatly appreciate that. Okay then, all those in favour of the recommendations as set out? Aye.
Aye.
Against? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the next issue, which seems to be on everyone's mind, is setting of the rates.
Just around the collection dates.
Item 8. Was that you?
So that's just it's really a formal process that we need to follow in terms of formally setting the rates. So just
as part of the annual plan.
As part of the annual adoption of the annual plan today, it's just worth noting probably that we do obviously need to set collection dates for collection of rates, but again want to reiterate that our staff are very much wanting to work with ratepayers one-on-one in terms of those who may be facing financial hardship this year, and we certainly will not be applying penalties to anyone who has made contact with us and is on a payment plan of some description. So while we do need to formally set a collection date, because we do need to collect that income, we are going to be working with ratepayers proactively in that space.
No, we appreciate that. Okay, I doubt if there's any questions. We've already...
There are actually, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry about this, but we're setting a rates regime that aspects of which are curious to me, and if I'm going to do that and put this impost on ratepayers, I need to understand it. So we're deferring, as I understand it, the due date is 20 September, but the penalty date's being equated to our current
That's right.
date. But can you explain the difference to me, please, between items 4 and 5, where there's a 10% penalty as at 1 February and a 10% penalty at 1 July? What's the difference between 4 and 5? Are they the same thing, or are they something different? It's on page
So
30.
the latter is an additional penalty. So the previous policy had been just to set 10% at 1 February, and then if it's still outstanding at 1 July, to go to a further 10%. That's my understanding. So, well, yeah, that's right. Have I got that wrong? Sorry, Bronwyn.
So just to explain a little bit further, the 10% that happens on the 1st of February is for the instalment amount only. So that's if they're late in paying that. And as Jess had mentioned, that's only applied if they're not on a payment plan. If it's, as at the 1st of July, they aren't on a payment plan still, the 10% is applied to the full amount that's outstanding. So it may be more than 1 year's worth of rates that is outstanding. It's the total amount.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, another, thank you. Rhonda, another couple of questions. I'm sorry, look, I just, looking at the tables, it gives you some comparison of rates, and I note that a $1 million capital value property in Napier Hill is paying $336 a year, whereas a $580,000 property in Taradale is paying $423 a year. On the following page, how does that work?
So it's primarily because most of the rates are set on land value,
right.
not on capital value.
And an example, councillor, would be someone in Taradale would be paying for the flood protection scheme.
I see.
And on the hill they wouldn't, presumably. Or they'd be paying less of an amount.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So there's a variety of other rates that are included in different areas depending on how the flood protection scheme especially affects, and that's one of our bigger rates, so it has a bigger impact.
All right. I had just one. I'll just stick to this question in the interest of time, Mr. Chairman. On page 41, what is an equalised capital value as referred to for the Heretaunga Plains Control Scheme?
So that's the equalisation process that happens that we talked about.
Same one as we
It's
talked
the
about
same
before.
one as we talked about before.
And so on the next page, where it refers to a differential capital value for the economic development rate, that's the opposite of an equalised value, or is that something else again?
That is because it is set differentially depending on where they sit as part of that rate. So there is different areas have different rates.
Different territorial, different areas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff.
On page 39, comparison of rural rates, like Martin looks at Napier, I look at rural. And there's an area indicated under Hastings, which was in 1920 was 346 hectares and then has moved to 436. Have they found some extra hectares, or am I just reading this wrong?
Yes,
It's
you're
just
right. I
different.
think that might,
Oh.
that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And the table on page
Yeah, under
59.
Hastings.
That's a very good spotting. The others are
trying to
year-on-year
find which one.
comparatives, so I'm not sure whether there's a typo in the area, but we'll need
Maybe
to
it was
check
accretion.
that.
On page 49.
Have we reclaimed some land? Or
Page
Page
39.
39.
Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong space.
We'll have to look into that, Sheriff.
Yes,
fine,
yeah,
no problem.
we can double check those numbers.
The designation
and if there's
of
a-
rural versus urban.
Any other quick, anyway?
Oh, yeah. So is it a specific property? Sorry, is that
Yes,
the?
it's a
Should be.
1920 comparison to 2021, so
Yeah,
it
so
should
it's quite possible that they've bought land next door, or that there's been extra land that's been included as part of that for the UAGC. They might be leasing land which on a long-term lease, which then becomes part and parcel of a single unit.
Okay.
So there's a number of reasons that they move around.
You can talk to Sheriff about that.
Yes, yeah,
and
we can look
find
at
out
that
about
specific property. and-
Anyway,
This is probably an easy answer, but at what stage, because we look at what schemes come under the different rate categories, at what stage do we get to relook at those, refresh those, what strategies included in which parts?
So
Is there a review
in terms of
period?
a rates review, we certainly are planning a full rates review at completion of after we produce the long-term plan. So that's the
After
trajectory for
plan.
that piece of
Next
work.
year?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions? Do we have a mover to move all the recommendations, 1 to 5, regards setting the rates? No. Thank you, Rick. The seconder, Haniwai, thank you very much. Do you wish to speak, Rick? Haniwai? Does anyone else wish to speak? All those in favour of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you. We'll move to the report from, it's called the EICC now, is it? Who's going to lead this? Does the chair lead this? Yep. That's you? Oh,
It's me.
yeah. Is it still you? Is it until
Yeah,
you're...
well, I chaired the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Rick. You lead that for us?
Oh, thank you. It was a very useful meeting. We didn't make a lot of decisions, but we made some. There was a notice of motion in my name, which we'll come back to later in the meeting, so I won't deal with that. We had a good discussion on the Hiratonga water security supply and how that was being met. I will say anecdotally, I'm encountering people who are very worried about water security in the future and worried about what the plan change means. I think we've got an issue here about perception rather than reality, so these things need to be translated out there. We had I thought was a good presentation from Mike Donnelly and Richard Gaddam about saving the Hiratonga Plains. They gave us a great presentation, and unfortunately the next day in the paper's announcement about the council's port taking over a chunk of the Hiratonga Plains, and the paper put a big photo of some trees on it, so the flames went hot from that. So it was point was well made. The timing from the other perspective wasn't the best. Talked about fire environmental plans, the integrated predator-free Hawke's Bay, and objectives. I'd make the other observation that we haven't actually sold this message to the public yet. I get numerous reports of people saying that they've got more birds and bird life in the trees around them, but they haven't made the connection between that and our own activities as a council and the rates that they pay. So we're doing pretty well on that. We had an update on the right tree, right place. I occasionally tease the person who leads this is, do we ever have a wrong place for the wrong tree at the wrong time? I think we've got this around the wrong way. Bit of alliteration there, but anyway, we're making progress on planting trees. We had a good news and a bad news story on the Braided Rivers and bird census. Sad to report that the birds across New Zealand are falling in numbers, 50% in 10 years, which was quite distressing. But on the other side of it, the bird populations on our Braided Rivers and Hawke's Bay are maintaining their population levels, so we need to be more vigilant in protecting what we've got. A very good thing. The Lincoln University study was glossed over as it should be. I thought it was pretty weak. And then we had a discussion on the Hiratonga Plains Flood Control Scheme Service Level Up Review to update ourselves on that. And the last thing in the meeting is I tendered my resignation as the chair of the meeting. And give notice that I intend to nominate when it's appropriate Henry Y. Ormsby as the chair of the Environmental Services Committee. I've enjoyed my my stint as the chair and look forward to its good work under a new leader.
Thank you, Rick. Are there any questions for Rick or staff regarding this report recommendation from the Environment Committee? If there are none,
I'll happily move the report be received.
I think within your report, I think we are going to formally nominate the new chair.
Well, I thought we could receive the report and do the nomination.
Receive the report first, or
We can, whatever you want.
whatever you want, chair, whichever you will. If you want to start at the bottom of the paddock, and
I'm
plough up,
bended by your will, Rick. We will receive the report. Do we have someone you moved? Thank you, Sheriff. Anyway, we'll second that. All those in favour of receiving the report from the Environment Committee? Aye. So we'll go to the next item there, which was actually part of that, the election of a new chair, since Rick has...
I'm nominating Henry Y. Ormsby for the position.
Second it.
Second by Martin. Are there any other nominations? There are none. Therefore, we have a new chair, not even an election. Well done, Henry Y.
We have an acceptance speech.
Yeah.
Thank you, mother, or maiden.
I just want to note on point 4, I don't know how the Corporate and Strategic Committee's name got on there. Was that supposed to be the Environment Committee there?
Oh, yeah, look at that.
already making him
Trying to take over.
Yeah, already making that.
No, very, very happy to accept, so thank you for the nomination in the second.
Yeah, thank you for accepting that nomination anyway. We're expecting really great things of you. We've already had great things from you. And look forward to you running this committee, which is probably, which is certainly one of our most important committees, if not our most important committee, without offending the other chairs. it certainly manages our core activities. And so, you know, really look forward to working with you on that. Okay, so, deputy, we've got a deputy chair. Who, did we have any thoughts on the deputy chair?
Madam Chair?
I'd like to nominate Rick Barker.
Oh, you want to keep the old boy, do you?
This is how Putin does it.
I'll second that nomination. See. Do we have any other nominations? Therefore, you are now the deputy chair, Mr. Barker, Councillor Barker, and I'll make a little speech about that too. I think that's a very good situation because that can, you know, you're deputy chair. Rick is a wonderful wingman, and I know as being deputy chair of the council, he will always support you in your endeavours to whatever you want to achieve there. So, congratulations, Councillor Barker.
Thank you.
You're now the deputy chair.
Another meeting, I'll be a member, and then another meeting, I'll be gone.
You'll be gone. I was just thinking that. I wasn't going to say it. Okay, so we will move to item 10, which is councillors' remuneration.
Now, could I just ask a question? Given that we've now made the decision we have, are the numbers in this correct? You certain of that? If that's the case, I'm happy to move them.
Well, it's a moving target, isn't it, because if you change things, but are the numbers correct given that? Is that right?
That's the question I asked. I've been assured by two of the staff members it's exactly correct. I haven't seen Jessica say it's correct. She's a numbers person, but...
Given the new situation?
I wouldn't be able to comment because I haven't reviewed the paper.
Right. Anyway, if the numbers are
created,
correct,
so.
as long as that's correct, I'm happy.
But we will certainly check.
Well, it's the principle anyway, which is in here.
It's a matter of, it's just a mathematical formula. Just
Okay,
have to write the right numbers to divide into it, and just to make sure they've had the right.
So you're moving the paper.
I'm moving the paper.
Jeff, you're second there?
Yep, I am.
Do you wish to speak, either of you? Does anyone else wish to speak about your paycheck? There are none. All those in favour of the recommendations? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
I just had one point you were going to make there, is that just over the comment, that in their conditions, all councillors are supposed to be given a jacket as part of their thing.
Are they?
And yes, they are, and I can say to you, I fought for this for 6 years till I got it eventually, and so I am proud owner of a Hawke's Bay Regional Council jacket, as is Councillor Curtin. And I don't see that the other councils have been provided with what's supposed to be, so I just asked the executive team to make sure we get people fitted up and provided with their Hawke's Bay Regional Council jacket.
Thank you for that additional comment, Councillor Barker. We really appreciate that.
Proving your worth in the new role already.
Jeff, we'll finish the subject, but...
Yeah, under remuneration, I should actually brought it up further.
You should have,
earlier. Electric vehicle, what does an electric vehicle consist of? Because there is a remuneration of 79 cents a kilometre. So if I arrive here again on my electric bike, do I get 79 cents per kilometre while I arrive here on my electric bike?
Yes.
Thank you.
No. Thank you, Jeff, for raising that outside the agenda, but that's fine. Okay, item 11, Marley Committee Members' Remuneration.
Chair, given that both of our co-chairs are here and implicated in the paper, I'm happy to present on the paper if it's your wish.
Yeah, certainly. I don't. They did note their conflict, which councillors didn't. They.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there is a conflict.
There's not a conflict.
Stand back.
They don't vote on the issue anyway, so we're fine, I think. So, but if you've got something to say on that, Perry, I'd appreciate it.
Probably just take the paper as read, but the key points in there that a base point of reference was the Shannon report, which does date back to 2017. Also looked at an increase of 13%, and that's reflected back in the RPC remuneration rates. That's been applied here, and it's part of the recommendations that in front of the council chair. So they're the only points that I would raise. It reflects an increase. It's not dissimilar in terms of the RPC applied rates. This one here does make a distinction between member remuneration for Māori committee members and co-chair through a per annum salary that's split between both co-chairs.
Petty, I think the councillors would want to be most aware of you have consulted on this, and there's general agreement from Tana Te Whenua on this.
Yes, it's gone through 2 stages of consultation, Chair. One, me working with both co-chairs, and the other one within the committee itself. These are agreed by both the committee and also the co-chairs.
I think that's the main thing we want to know. Right, councillors, therefore I'll go straight to the, yes.
I'm happy to move the resolution.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barker, and Heliwai will second. Do you wish to speak, Rick? Heliwai? Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, all those in favour of the recommendations? Aye. Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Right, crikey, you're going to get out of here before...
We're listening to you, Chair. We're listening to
You
you.
are,
Said
you
urgency,
are
urgency.
listening.
We're whipping along. Or ahead of you, actually. Catch up.
Right, so item 12, the RPC Tangata Whenua reps on the council committees. This should be another quick one. Petty, do you wish to speak to this paper as well?
I think the paper's pretty straightforward. Unless there's questions, I'm happy to take those, Chair.
Yeah, any questions on this paper? And we have thrashed this one out and it's gone backwards and forwards.
A couple of questions, please, Mr. Chair. So I'm not looking to... Just around, my understanding was that for the Environment Integrated Catchments Committee, Peter Paku was the TWR representative on that committee. And it's mentioned in one of the other reports, and Tanya Hurta has been nominated to represent the Tangata Whenua representatives on the hearings. So I just didn't notice it in that paper, or did I miss it?
It's not in there.
Tanya's in there as
Tanya is.
for hearings committee, but
Yeah.
I don't think that was our understanding in terms of the environment and growth
No,
catchments.
it wasn't it? We thought you were doing everything, mate.
That's right.
So just for clarity, when this originally the last time, not originally, when this last came to council, there was a little bit of confusion around my appointment and mandate from Tato Tato, and who actually would be sitting in the seat on behalf of Tangata Whenua members. There was an expression from council members that there was the idea that that would be shared across all of our Tangata Whenua members rather than being left predominantly with one person. That's an ongoing conversation because there's value in spreading that skill. But my recollection of conversations with Tangata Whenua members was that after that meeting, we discussed the points presented by councillors around diversifying representation on that, and we readdressed who would be sitting on what panels. Peter Paku, thank you. Peter Paku has been attending the Environmental Catchments Committee for a while and expressed the desire to stay in that position and for consistency and that experience in the Tangata Whenua meeting. That was my understanding. So outside of that, I am still happy to sit in the remaining seats with the ongoing conversation with Tangata Whenua as we look at our skills as to who else might be able to step into those roles over time. That make any more clarity?
Changes the paper there.
Really? No, it doesn't make clarity to me. I thought there was a lot of conversation around RPC wanting a single person so they could get a single voice back on all of the things. That's what I got. And I thought that was a good idea, and you were up for it, but you wanted to go through Tautau Wairoa, Te Wairoa, to get their acceptance of that, because that was going to put you in a lot more work, of course. And my understanding was that they okayed that.
That's directly from the co-chair, RPC co-chair, Joynella, and the paper reflects the last communication with Joynella on that. So this is new.
Then I'm going to assume, Mr. Chair, if that's right, that was my misunderstanding, and I'd much prefer to go with the conversation that the co-chairs have had with the Pou Whakarai and James in this regard.
To just add to that, my recollection of it is exactly as Rex has put out to you.
Fair point.
Yep.
So let's just go with that until because we were always very certain on this that this was a Tangata Whenua decision. So if Tangata Whenua would decide to change the decision, we would listen to that. But right now, we've got, as the paper outlines.
I might add, it was also seen as a benefit to have a single person who would then have visibility across the whole of the council's work, because they do integrate part, they all overlap. And to have one person here, one person there, you would lose that holistic view of it. So that was
that was a
clear
view.
about having a person.
That was a view. That wasn't our view. That was a view that came from the RPC Tangata Whenua reps, and we thought it was not a bad view.
I'm not seeking to challenge it or just add further clarity. I missed those initial conversations when council had the TWR, and I've caught up since. Obviously, I've missed a little bit of that conversation, and I've created some confusion, so I prefer to go with the paper.
Thank you. So it's another.
We have a good start, mate.
Yes. Had a lot of this conversation around this. Is there someone will move the Rick will move it? Yep. Thank you. And we have a seconder. Anyway, will second. Rick, do you wish to speak? Anyway, do you wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak?
I just wanted to briefly thank Te Pou Whakaarae for the work he's done with our Māori committee and regional planning committee representatives in navigating a fair way through all of this, and a respectful way through all of this to our collective benefit. So thank you very much.
I think we'd all endorse that, Peter. You've done a great job here. And I think this is a really innovative and really respectful decision here. So all those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, now we have workshop guidance. What's that all?
So, Chair, look, you might recall there was a question asked by Councillor Williams earlier in the year, which was a perfectly legitimate question as to the status of our workshops relative to our council meetings and our obligations under the Local Government Act. There have been questions also contemplated recently around participation in workshops by our tangata whenua representatives on our council, full council meetings, and so it was timely, I think, that we clarified these matters formally and just made sure that everybody understood what the rules of the game are, if you like, in relation to workshops. So, I don't know, were there anything, Joleanne, you wanted to add?
No, just that we've included particular reference around tangata whenua participation in workshops.
Yeah, I think it's a very good paper. Did anyone got any questions on it?
I have a question, because I was a little bit surprised, because when I read the paper, I thought, isn't this what we do? So is this paper just about making sure it's clear this is how we operate? Is making no changes whatsoever?
No.
So I read it, and thought, well, what's changed here? I couldn't see anything, so it's just codifying what our practice is.
So we haven't had any policy around the participation of tangata whenua reps that sit on our committees with respect to workshops. That's just been a loose set of arrangements that hasn't been clear. So that, if you like, is the new bit, which is
Codifying it.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm happy with that. I couldn't see anything being shifted here. I was looking at it. What's shifted? I couldn't find it.
Well, we're just making sure that that is, that's right, okay. That is part of what we're doing. Uppy?
Through you, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, same point 16 on tangata whenua participation indicates that, based on the last item, that invite would go out to myself, being the current RPC member sitting on the committee. Does that still leave the freedom of the tangata? So if I'm unavailable, I can then make that available to tangata whenua members to nominate a person to attend? Or am I the only, under this policy, I'm the only person that can be considered to attend the workshop?
Chair, if I could offer a view, I would think that it would be appropriate for you to be able to nominate another member, in your case, of the Regional Planning Committee, and similarly for the Māori Committee co-chairs to nominate a backfill from the Māori Committee, but only within those committees as they are appointed governors of the Council's overall governance architecture, as opposed to substituting in
my cousin down the road.
Correct.
I agree with that. I think it should be done in advance, because if a councillor isn't here, there's no delegate.
No delegate.
They're in a slightly different position because the representative of an organisation, whereas we're a representative of an elected, but it should be treated almost identically, actually.
Do we have to put that in here, do you think?
Almost identical. We can certainly add it in just for clarity.
I think we should add it. I think it's a really good point. So, because it needs to be very specific, because we don't want the cousin down the road. We want someone who's...
So it has to be done with a forethought. So.
Will that be part of the standing orders or the code of conduct, rather than just specific to this?
Attached to standing orders as an appendix, as I understand it.
That's what you'll do. Okay.
So subject to that being added in here, well, I think we probably do need to add it in, don't we?
Yep.
Before we move it. So did you get that, Leanne? That basically tangata whenua can co-opt, if they're not available, can co-opt somebody from their respective committee.
But we just write it. So when the tangata whenua nominate, for example, Api for the position on here, they also nominate a delegate in his absence, and same with the Māori committee. Just done this thing, so.
That's not a bad idea either.
Right?
That's a good idea.
Is that not happening already for meetings? Because we're talking about workshops here.
Yeah, but it should be for meetings and for workshops.
and
So nominate
workshops.
who the person is, and then in the absence, the delegate. And that's it. We've got a very clear
Yeah, we
process
know
all the
then.
way through.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, no beforehand.
That's a good idea.
We can put that in words.
Yeah.
Mr Chair, I just had a question on 23.2. Expressing opinions but not debating issues. I kind of understand that, but if the benefit of these workshops is where we can have a free and frank exchange of ideas in the process of formulating our thoughts around quite grunty policy high-level topics, if the point is that we shouldn't be debating it in the same manner we would a motion or a resolution, I understand that. It's not sort of a moving amendments and seconding and you spoke once and you don't speak again, you get a right of reply. But perhaps it should be expressing opinions and discussing, but not formally debating issues.
I think
Would that be-
that would work. I think the main thing we're trying to ensure here is that we're preserving the proper processes under the Local Government Act where matters should be appropriately debated in public.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing we're guarding against is that there has been a practice by some councils within New Zealand historically to conduct all of their debates and discussions behind closed doors in workshop, and then turn up to council meetings and simply resolve with everything all preordained.
Yeah, I understand.
And that's not healthy for democracy, and certainly the Local Government Act assumes that debate will occur in public. So the various views can be observed by the community.
Right, well, I'm wondering if we could just amend that to expressing opinions and discussing, but not formally debating.
I think that's fine. Yep. Got that, Leanne?
So just, I'm picking that formally debating, what does that mean?
What does debating mean?
So what I think what we should, if you're going to do that, I agree with the notion, is to be debating for the purpose of making a council decision.
Yep, that would work too.
Yeah, that's better.
That's what it means, so we're not,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I get Martin's point, we shouldn't be debating for a purpose of a council decision. That's your point, I guess, isn't it, James? You shouldn't be decision making. So we can have any discussion you like, but not a decision making debate.
Yeah.
So that's what it needs to have to it.
Good point.
Okay, Leanne, that goes in the document. The other one goes and needs to be in the recommendations, doesn't it? Can you just read out what you've written substitutes?
So, sorry, I've put endorses the HBRC workshops guidance document for implementation as amended to incorporate the ability for tangata whenua to nominate an alternate to attend a workshop if they are unavailable, and not formally debating for decision making.
Yeah, that's got to be clear. That's all clear anyway.
That's good.
Okay, is everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Therefore, do we have someone to move the recommendations with those adjustments?
I'll move.
Sheriff? Marley? Do you wish to speak, Sheriff? Charlie, do you wish to speak?
No.
Anyone wish to speak on that?
Mr Chairman, I just want to reassure anyone who happens to be paying attention to this agenda item that I see this as a healthy and constructive part of a democratic process. The formal debate and decision-making stages is preserved and kept fully public. But there are times where it's just simply more efficient and helpful if we are able to, around high-level policy development and upskilling at that very formative stage and for the purposes of briefing, have these workshop processes. I think we are then better equipped to serve our constituents and the region's interests when it comes to that more formal process, and nothing is decided. So I don't think that there's any concern here with Local Government Act purposes. In fact, I think this serves them. That's my view.
Yeah, that's also my view. They're a really important part of us getting free and frank but there are no decision items, and I think we usually re-debate these in public anyway. So, we have a move, yes, Uppy?
If I may. So, not speaking directly to the paper, but just by extension, as a tangata whenua rep, I've often been made comments at this table around my criticisms, as such, of HBRC and their ability to work collaboratively with their iwi partners. The last item and this item speak to the fact that staff and HBRC have been making progress in these spaces, and I don't think it's, again, expressed clearly, but I just want to acknowledge that this is an example of an ongoing and developing relationship between HBRC and tangata whenua, and we're encouraged by the indicators and where this may lead to going into the future. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, Uppy. Appreciate your comments. Okay, all those in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? It is carried. Thank you very much. We now have recommendations from the RPC, which is I'll get you to run through this, James.
It's a simple paper.
Yeah, it was a simple
Kerry,
paper.
I can take you through that.
Kerry,
if you
if
like.
you could, yes.
So there was only one decision item from the RPC. This was around the outstanding water bodies hearings panel commissioners. And there was a decision that there would be an appointment of Dr. Roger Marker as the Commissioner with the Tikanga Māori expertise, Christine Scott and Dr. Brent Cowie as the Chair. It was determined that the panel would be made up of 3 members with 5 reserves, if you'd like to call them reserves. Glenys Payne, Roru Kirikiri, Mark Farnsworth, Tanya Huata and Liz Palmer. There were 2 other decisions with regards to delegations, delegating the authority to the hearings panel to hear and issue the decisions, and also to delegate authority to the chief executive to make those appointments and arrange the logistics around the meetings themselves. And there was actually, you'll note there was a verbal update from Liz Lambert around the plan change 6A.
Thank you. Just need to change 3 to 5.
Yeah.
A 0.5. Okay. Any further questions?
Oh, correct. Thank you.
No questions? Right. We'll move to receive that report. A mover, Jeff? And Charlie? Jeff, do you wish to speak? Yep. Charlie, do you wish to speak? No. No. It's a good day. Any other speakers?
Mr. Chair, do we need to discuss at some stage plan change 6A and what becomes of that process?
So we'll be bringing that to you at the RPC meeting.
Right.
On the 16th of August, 14th.
And equally, we're coming back to the Federated Farmers letter later.
19th of August.
Yeah, it's outside this paper, but yeah, no, that's good to raise that. We are.
I'm not sure it's outside the paper, Mr. Chairman. There was a recommendation that we go to the SPP. We got rejected, and we need to do something with that. So we've got a question mark on process. The resolution, as I looked at it again from the RPC, was that if it's rejected, we default to the first schedule. And now it looks like we can't. So our plan B from the RPC recommendation was the first schedule, which now seems to have been removed from us. So we've got a live issue there that's unresolved.
But
so we do need to come back. We need to discuss
the
that.
RPC needs to come back to it, not us.
Yes, we need to take that back to
It's
the
a fall
RPC.
to the RPC.
Right.
Okay. Before I put this. I just want to comment. I think this was a really good process. I think it's always going to be a difficult process getting commissioners, which everybody's going to agree with. And I think we did really well, despite quite a difficult and complex meeting. We did well to end up with 3 really good people and 5 reserves in case one of them gets sick or can't attend. So we had a mover, didn't we? Mm-hmm. And Charlie was seconded, yes. Well, so Jeff, you don't want to speak, and Charlie doesn't want to speak. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That is carried. So, fixing the common seal. It's a moment for you, Rick.
Happy to move.
Got a mover for common seal, fix the common seal. Do we have a seconder? Sheriff's a seconder. You wish to speak, Councillor Barker?
No, thanks.
Right, Sheriff?
Nope, thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favour of fixing the common seal? Aye.
Aye.
Now, item 16, we've all been waiting for this paper.
Well, could I suggest, Chair, given that one of the people, councillors away for personal reasons, I don't want to disclose, is due to be back shortly, could we move further down the agenda item and wait for Councillor Curtin to return?
I'm happy with that, if other councillors are happy with that.
It's an issue which I think we all have got opinions on.
Yes.
Everybody should be facilitated to be here. He's got, I think, a perfectly legitimate reason for not being here.
I accept that, so from the chair.
To clear up the other items, we'd be fine.
Okay, yeah, well, let's come back to that item.
Chair, would you like to still proceed with the climate change action communications campaign item?
Well, those two might just go together actually, although they're not linked.
I think, having read the communication one, I thought it could stand on its own.
I think it stands on its own.
The team are available to give a presentation.
Yeah,
It might provide some just useful context.
Rightio, you're up then, team.
There is a PowerPoint, correct? Yep.
Just delay it until Neil comes back. 1:30.
What are we doing now?
The survey.
Councillor, sorry, Chair, I'm not sure that councillors have all met Rebecca and Jenny. So
I don't
just
think
do
they have.
introductions. So Rebecca Ashcroft Cullen and Jenny Kewen are two members of our marketing communications team. They've been leading the work on this.
Kia ora, kia ora koutou. Kia hui hui mai nei tēnei rā, ko Rebecca Ashcroft Cullen, toko ingoa. E whānau mai ahau kei whanganui ātara, e ngārei, kei hira taunga ahau e noho ana. He kai tohu tohu whakapā ahau, kei te kaunihira. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou e hoa mā, ko Jenny Kewen toko ingoa, no Manawatu ahau, ko no Ahuriri ahau e noho ana, tēnā koutou katoa. So thanks very much for having us here today. We are genuinely excited about this campaign and hope that we can bring you along with equal enthusiasm as we show you through the presentation. We are presenting this to you for your information, and obviously we do want your feedback, particularly on some imagery later on, which we hope is attention grabbing and a bit provocative. We're up to the Y? Yes, we're up to the Y. So we've got three main objectives with this campaign, and that is to position the council as a leading local authority on the climate crisis. We're going to do that through packaging up our comprehensive body of work and communicating that effectively. Next, we also want to localise the climate crisis. We really want to bring it home to Hawke's Bay and our community and industry about how real it is, and we'll do that through data and data from our own from council and also other information as well. So there's going to be that sort of education process. We also want to encourage behavioural and systems change, and obviously that's the really important part. We want to keep this positive and not engender apocalypse fatigue. Our key messages, the climate crisis is the biggest environmental challenge of our time. It's already impacting our climate, agriculture, pastoral farming, native ecosystems, health and biodiversity. We're already seeing the impacts of the climate crisis through volatile weather like storms and increased frequency and duration of droughts. And as the lead environmental organisation in Hawke's Bay, the council is working hard, obviously, to prevent the worst impacts of this through our comprehensive body of work, as I've said, and we're really accelerating our efforts to reduce our carbon footprint as well and get our house in order. And as a community, we really need to work together to cut our emissions and adapt to the effects of climate change and foster a resilient community.
So the how of the campaign. This is going to be a 6-week campaign that starts in the middle of September and runs through until the end of October. And our strategy for the campaign is quite simple. We're telling stories. So we're pulling together narrative from people that others can relate to and using key messages to back up their stories and support people to make change. The engagement strategy, collateral and information gathered from this campaign will be used as learnings for long-term engagement, but the 6 weeks that we're presenting on today are for the specific promotional period. The who. So we've chosen these 3 specific groupings for specific reasons. We want to empower whānau and communities to make change and see the difference that they can make. We've done our best through our strategy and collateral to make the campaign as accessible as it can be for all communities. We've also chosen business because they're a critical part of Hawke's Bay economy, how we live our lives and how our communities thrive. When it comes down to it, they're often just families trying to leave a better world for their children. For rural, farmers are on the front line of change and our single best asset in the fight against climate change. We want to make them the champions of their own story and use our channels as a local authority to positively reinforce the work that they're doing.
So to the what, what tools will we use? We're suggesting that we use for this. We have, as you know, the survey, the Climate Action Survey is underway, and that's going out to 800 people across Hawke's Bay, and that's capturing the community's views on the climate crisis, looking at whether people have changed their behaviour as a result of that, and indeed whether they've been more reflective about that through lockdown, and if so, whether also whether people think the council is doing enough in this space, and whether they'd be prepared to pay more for climate mitigation services. And we will use the results of this survey, which will be very interesting, to pitch to local and national media, and that'll be the launch of the campaign. So alongside this, we will develop a one-stop web climate crisis hub with local statistics and our videos, guides, all our relevant links, everything will be there for people to go to, and that will be updated regularly. We are also developing 3 high-quality video case studies, looking at those areas we've been talking about, rural, business and community. So for the rural community, we've already underway with a video of Greg and Rachel Hart at Mangarara Station, who many of you will know, and they have a really compelling story to tell about their sustainable farming practices, and which have been put in place with the support and guidance of the council. We're also profiling Bostocks, who have sort of sustainability really at their business core and in their processes and initiatives, and so there'll be a good story to tell, and that generational story as well between father and sons. And then we are just exploring our community case study. So we're really looking for a community champion who is living sustainably and kind of doing that, in conjunction with the community around them and having an impact on them. So we're also going to produce some how-to guides, just some for business and communities and families, just some simple tips and just steps to take to live more sustainably, something that's accessible. And for this one, we thought we'd go outside the square a little bit, and we're suggesting pop-up stalls. So in Wairoa, Napier, Hastings and Central Hawke's Bay, these, the idea with this is that we actually go to where people are at rather than making them come to us, and therefore get a wider view from the community. And so those pop-up stalls will be, the point of that will be to gather views, start conversations about the climate crisis, perhaps do a survey, and again talk about our body of work that we do already. And at least at one of those sites, we've got a well-known artist to do some footpath art around this theme, and to attract people to us to come and have a conversation. We're also partnering with the Youth Environment Council, who are very keen to work on this. They are going to produce a series of videos about what kind of world they want to live in the future. And I think that youth voice is really important here. And they're also going to help us out with social media and during the duration of the campaign, and with Instagram and things, which we'll need a little bit of help with.
The imagery of the campaign is what will make it stand out. That's what people will see. That's what will pull them in. So our goal for the imagery was to create strong, provocative designs that grabbed people's attentions and started conversations. So we've got 2 draft designs here for you today. On the left, we've got a localised version of Tamata Peak. On the left side, we've got lush, bountiful land capturing the now. And on the other side, we've got a dry and arid landscape capturing the future if we don't do anything. Then we've got the hourglass image representing that we're on a timeline. Water is dripping away and turning into drought. We hope that these images speak for themselves, but would really appreciate feedback from you at the end of the presentation about the images. This is the first time Council is engaging with the community specifically on the climate crisis, so we'll be taking learnings from it. We will be measuring for reach and level of engagement and interest. So we'll be collecting data from our new web hub to see how much traffic it gets. We'll be looking at social media on Instagram and Facebook, and the Youth Environment Council also suggested TikTok, so we'll be really up with the play, to check out the engagement and reactions going on social media. The kōrero that we'll be having with the community at the pop-up stores to see what the interest is, to see what questions they're asking, how much they know, what their concern is. And also around digital and print media, particularly about the survey. So in the long term, this is the start of a much, no, that wasn't what I was going for there. This is the start of a much bigger engagement, and we're hoping it'll be the catalyst for more sustained engagement with the public about the climate crisis. The engagement generated from this campaign will influence the long-term plan, but our big, hairy, audacious goal for climate crisis engagement is for it to eventually lead to a community mind shift and region-wide behaviour change. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you, and we welcome your feedback.
Oh, that was marvellous. Thank you very much. Questions from councillors, or even comment, questions and comment. Happy?
Love it. Really looking forward to seeing this roll out. Wondering whether there is any scope to incorporate, or whether there's any thinking around all 5 LTAs participating in some form around climate action. We're, for example, as Napier City, we're, for example, as I see the pop-ups, but is there any thought about how we could encourage other LTAs to jump on board what ultimately is something we should all be driving?
We haven't incorporated it into the planning, but through social media and through the pop-up stores, they can definitely be involved. But as I said, this is the start of a long-term engagement, and in the future, we will definitely be looking to involve the other councils.
So I'll be on, and I was going to deal with this under the notice of motion item, but I might as well comment on it now. We had a discussion amongst the regional CEOs and the mayors on Monday on that question. What's fair to say is that they are very interested but haven't done really any thinking. And what was evident is that response to climate change has been something that's been on their kind of radar and list to do, but hasn't sort of made it to the priority list. None of the other councils are currently measuring their carbon footprint, for example, but they're all interested in jointly procuring services off the back of what we're doing in that regard, and they are very interested in collaborating, but it's a start of a conversation. So I'd say that we are well ahead of the other councils in that regard.
Cool. And it would be good to think that this campaign will actually spur them into some action as well with their slightly. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Just to be fair, the Hastings District Council, I should also have acknowledged they've recently created a new committee of council, which is the Eco District Committee, and that's now looking at how the Hastings District and the Hastings District Council can improve across a whole range of sustainability areas its performance.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Mike, didn't see you there. Mike?
So just along the same lines as Uppy, so in regards to the engagement with the pop-ups, do the public actually distinguish between Hawke's Bay Regional Council and any of the LTAs? So are they only interested in having a conversation that actually affects Regional Council and none of the others, or to them is it all one conversation?
That's a difficulty. It is a difficulty. I think for the purposes of this, what we're suggesting is that it is a regional council initiative, and that we, there is a real need there to talk about the work that we are doing here. So I think that would be a really good opportunity for that. And then, of course, in those conversations with people, when they do come up, we can point them, I suppose, to the other, TLAs and maybe in terms of what they're doing. But really, the focus would be on what we're doing.
So you haven't had any of those pop-up engagements as of yet?
No, we haven't had any
Thank
pop-ups.
you.
This is just a suggestion for the campaign period between September and October.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rick, then Craig, then Martin.
Oh, thank you. I found this I really enjoyed your paper. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I think you're heading in the direction which is really important. I was interested to see last week in the media a report come out on the change in carbon gases, climate gases in Hawke's Bay, where over 10 years we had managed to reduce our carbon emissions by 7%. And it was mainly due to the agricultural sector, which was then due to a change in farming practices, less ruminants and more trees and other things. So it was really wasn't a sort of considered thing. It was just what people were doing, but not necessarily for the end result. But household emissions had gone up.
Yeah.
And this is our fundamental problem. It's twofold. Firstly, that for a lot of people, this action on climate change is somewhere else. It's not for me or what I do. The second thing is, I thought the figures were frightening. Actually, we managed to reduce our climate gases by 7% over 10 years, when we are required to meet our goals to reduce them by 7% per annum. So we are running at under 10% of what we should do. But not only are we running under 10%, we're running under 10% by accident, not by design. And so there's no mind shift here, what was absolutely necessary. So if we're going to make a change, we have to change people's mindset. And I agree with the proposal, I like it. It's, to me, a start. It's not the answer in total, but it's a start.
Thank you. We'll go Martin, then Craig. Anyway, you want to come in, but Will's waiting. So everyone wants to have a chat on this. We're going to start with you, Martin.
Well, thank you very much, Rebecca and Jenny, for that presentation. Can you just take me back to the what?
Mm-hmm.
Right. In the paper, there's a recommendation of a climate change stake in the ground opinion piece.
Yes.
I'm interested in, I guess, a councillor capacity and opportunities for us as elected members to take leadership on this issue in a visible way. Who would that opinion piece be from? Who's at the pop-ups? Is there any opportunity, or would you have any views on, councillors getting involved in this process of public engagement themselves?
We would love councillors to be involved in this campaign. We think it would be great to, we could do a series of opinion pieces, because I imagine you'll all have different things you want to say, and so we're very happy to set that up. I would imagine, stake in the ground opinion piece to launch it off would be something that, you could talk amongst them yourselves. I would imagine that might have been a Rex.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then in terms of the pop-ups, it would be really good to have councillor representation at those, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so you could contact us and coordinate with our diaries and that sort of thing.
We certainly can.
For people who want to get involved. Thank you.
Hey, Craig.
Thanks very much.
Will, and then anyway.
Really appreciate your efforts there. There was a term used right at the front there. It was like disaster fatigue or something. What was it?
Apocalypse fatigue.
Yeah, but that is so wise because, as Councillor Barker just noted, and the point you've just made there, so often this seems so far away from someone out of Brussels or something, well-meaning, but it gives everyone an excuse to, well, it's their issue. And your focus on localisation and having Tamata there, I think it's really, really clever. And grassroots is where this does change over time, and even your ambitions and your measurements are basically just to nudge behaviour long term. At the end of the day, you're trying to save the world with 25k, you know. But it's where you go with this, and increasingly with the other territorial authorities, hopefully they look fondly upon this, and this will all be shared with them, all that feedback. But it's actually, I'm really interested in the day after your campaign ends, or our campaign ends, and the day after you've taken all the surveys and bits and pieces, and Rex has written 2 opinion pieces, and you know, that's all good.
Had Lily give me a hard time.
Yeah, that's right, we're fixing the
Lily wrote the opinion piece. Put your name on it. Even better, I like that.
But how, and maybe I'm just going to start to go towards the CEO here a wee bit, is how do you see that fitting in the broader part of the council? Because you mentioned our carbon footprint. I presume you meant HBRC's carbon footprint.
Yes. Yeah.
And then where that is now and our knowledge, and there's a parallel item about this later on. So the day after this is successful and great participation, that's all kind of cool. Maybe the kind of oil tanker of climate change's actions moving slightly in the right direction because of this locally. What do we see happening next, other than high five everyone, we're doing a survey?
So
what would you like, and then what would you see?
Hear from you first, but
Did you want to? So as we talked about, this campaign will lead into the long-term plan engagement. So we're going to have quite a focus on the climate crisis within the long-term plan, and also beyond, we'll be incorporating behaviour change engagement into our communications and wider. But we don't have a specific plan for day 1 after the campaign, so I'll leave that.
yeah, look, I think it does depend on the sort of reaction we get, the survey results, the reaction we get from the community, monitoring all that all the way through. Plus, in parallel, in the other item, you will have noted that we're proposing a regional climate inventory. Councillor Barker referenced before the Statistics New Zealand results that came out last week. They're very high level and they're derived from a national picture. What we want is a more detailed analysis of what greenhouse gas emissions look like at the regional scale, so that we can then, for the long-term plan, really focus our efforts on leverage points and where the parts in the economy that are the lowest hanging fruit for change, if you like. So our thinking is that we would be bringing to you for the long-term plan an evidence-based proposal for funding, a suite of interventions. Precisely what that looks like at this moment, you know, it's too early to tell because we need the data to inform it.
Okay, that's great. And just one further comment. Your language you used, I think our rural community will be our greatest assets in helping move. That is so cool, because so often they just get endlessly bashed, and actually they're the entire heartbeat of this region.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're stressing.
Yeah, and you're leaving the door open and working together.
Yeah, no, that's
well
really
done for
clear,
that
and that's a
language.
really key message of this campaign.
Many others could learn from that approach.
Yep.
Thank you, Will. That's a great segue into you.
It is a great segue. That's my exact point. So, look, really agree with that comment. You know, farmers are in control, as I've said many times before, of vast areas of our region, and so we need them on board with a lot of things. Greg and Rachel Hart, yep, great champions. The whole farming community don't necessarily agree with their farming methods, but they're trying to address sustainability, and not only on their farm scale, but what they can do for the wider environment as well. I guess I just wanted to pick up on the survey, and one of the questions was, do you eat less meat, you know, to help climate change? And so I guess I'm just saying, just be a bit careful about mixed messaging. And so, like, to me, the meat issue, there's a huge difference from eating meat from a feedlot, you know, to grass-fed, to a farm with, you know, that's all riparian planted and some forestry and native bush, so perhaps you could rephrase that question slightly better. And probably just a question for, a comment for the comms team, just around something like that, or any comms that put out. So just since I've been councillor, any comms, and it might be just a really little snippet like that, and I get it in the neck, and it just switches farmers completely off. So just be really careful around those sort of things.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, anyway.
O tēnei te mihi kia kōrua mō tō mihi e te timatanga. So just thank you both for the effort you've made to give us a mihi and tell us who you are and where you're from. And thank you for your presentation. I see this more as the start of an educational campaign opposed to a marketing campaign, just because I think our public will learn a lot, but we'll learn a lot from our public on their perceptions and where we go next in the LTP. I really like how you've tried to have sort of equality across the region, so not forgetting CHB and Wairoa in terms of your pop-ups and where your conversations are happening. And I definitely agree about the imagery you use that's very emotive and very future focused. So kia ora, thank you.
Happy, then Charlie.
Kia ora kōrua. So really this is just some observations through your presentation, so I just want to chuck these out, and whether or not they fit within your scope of thinking, completely up to you. In those initial why and how, as you're running through the slide projection and outlining how you might engage with the community in this conversation, you highlighted what often is spread internationally and nationally, which is the negative connotations associated with climate change. Near the end of that, there are a couple of more positive features that looked at alternatives. And so what I wanted to suggest was, as we look at the impacts and you provide those visual images and that conversation around what climate change might mean for us, the converse of that I think also has opportunity, and that is what new opportunities are going to be presented throughout that climate change. A 5-degree temperature shift will mean an opening of a whole new range of planting in horticulture and agricultural industry. So it's not all negative. There are some positives, and a part of that behavioural change is also recognising new innovation and new solutions going into the future, which could add a positive tone to the message that you're going to be spreading around our community. Because while we are looking at the negative impacts, there'll be a number of us looking for what are the future opportunities then. So there might be an opportunity for you to incorporate that into your messaging and provide a bit of balance. That was the only feedback I'd like to offer.
Charlie?
Yeah, just another observation probably about the imagery picture you had up there, especially one with Tomato Peak. That actually looked the same on both sides of the picture. Actually, Tomato Peak is as lush and green as much as anything else as well too. So yeah, our people take they look at Tomato Peak and Kauranaki as a good focus point. So there should be a difference here. On the right hand side, on the left hand side should be a bit greener.
Yeah, we can refine that to make it.
And one of the other things too is the impact on fisheries. Got to be put in there somehow, because while we want to tidy up our act on the land, the actual effect is actually out at sea as well.
Yeah, so we'll be drilling down into that kind of information in our key messages. When we talk about localising it, we'll be talking about.
Yeah, I'm mindful of there is a corridor that goes about all the toxins around the equator and stuff get into the fish, the small ones. Next one size up eats all the small ones, then becomes more concentrated in the larger fish. And at the top of the food chain is the polar bear and the Inuit. So they're the ones really at risk for all that sort of stuff. But down here in the southern hemisphere is slightly different. But again, it's our fishery as well. It's at the end of the line.
Is there any more comment? Jared?
Good. I like the imagery. Thank you very much for your presentation. However, it's good that you called it up. Is that your smoky fire up there? I totally disagree with that image.
Okay.
I don't think the Heretaunga Plains will ever look like that, because if that's the case, we actually have failed here on this table. Okay. So I disagree with that, because that's not what we're planning to do, and that's that's the worst case scenario, and we're not going to go to the worst case scenario. And you just said you don't want to go there, and you don't want to perpetrate that image either. So I think almost both images are way beyond what we really should be saying, because you can't prove that that is the case. Okay. Also within the survey, there are a few questions, quite a few, that I wouldn't agree with, because actually you're indicating and directing mind processes to a worst case scenario. That's not the case. Okay, you tell me what it should look like, and I'll listen to it. But there's many sides to this story, and it's not just only one side of the story. So we need to be looking really balanced. From a farming perspective, I get it all the time, especially in current situation. They understand, and if you look at the article that Rick referred to, James spoke to it, that we as Hawke's Bay actually only have a minor influence compared to other regions. Those were your words. So from a emissions perspective, we're only minor. And then I've learned a new word, and I ask you if you know the word balconeer. Do you know what a balconeer is? Okay, a balconeer is a person that sits in Italy on a balcony, and the parade goes past. And yeah, fantastic, that's what you guys need to do. Yeah, that's the action you need to take. But they're only sitting on the balcony. Your job, I think, would be really going forward to actually get those people off the balcony and get them into the parade. Okay? And the article that we saw last week is exactly that. We've got people in our community who, yes, we need to change the climate, all that sort of stuff, and you farmers, and I'm one of them as well, you guys are to blame. And the report last week made it very clear that actually in town, their emissions gone up, whereas Will and his team have gone down, okay? And the perception is totally different. And your survey, I look forward to the results, will actually prove that. They're on their balconies telling Will that he's got to improve, whereas they actually doing it wrong, because that's their perception. But your job, I think, is going to be get them off the balcony, because I think farming is already taking this on board and taking this very serious.
And we've tried to stress that in the campaign. So we want to enable communities and whānau and business to make change, and we want to talk about fantastic stuff that farmers are doing. So we're trying to get the balance between enabling and, while this is worst case scenario, we're trying to get images that will grab people's attention and say, we don't want to be there. So that's why we've chosen those images.
Get them off the balconies.
Yeah.
You got a further comment?
I have actually, Mr. Chair, if I might. It's more of a rod from my own back, actually. And that is going back to my original comment around our local territorial authorities. So I also work with Napier City Council as an elected member. And I would concur with the comments from Chief Executive James that the desire, drive and conversation, at least from my perspective in our other partner bodies, is really light. And the presentation here talked about farmers being key to driving this change going forward. They have been, and they have been wearing a lot of the slack unfairly. But your presentation talks about businesses being a part of that. And so it brings me back to my original question around, if our LTAs in the urban areas are not yet fully aware of how they have a role in this space, how are they going to support you and the businesses to find their space in this conversation? So that's not a challenge to you, that's a challenge to our local territorial authorities, Napier City Council and others, that this is not just a job for you and this council, but this is a concern for every living being, actually. But particularly, I'm looking forward to where we might be able to find opportunities to strengthen collaborative relationships between our LTAs and encourage them to find their space in this story and their opportunity to promote it. Kia ora.
Thank you, Happy. Well, I'll wind up. I think you've done, I think this is a really great presentation, and I disagree with the Sheriff, because I think it's shock and awe. I think we're all on the balcony. We all make platitudes to climate change, and then we go off and jump in our utes and drive off, and we all do things that we don't think it's really real. And what we're going to do is shock our community, because this is real. And I would actually do more dramatic pictures than that. I'd have the ocean coming over and splashing up. I'd have kids standing in their gumboots and floods. Because unless we get this in our head that climate change is coming at us and we all start to take some personal responsibility, not in responsibility at governance tables such as we sit, this is going to come at us, and it's coming at us much sooner than we could ever predict. They've been saying 100 years for 20 years, so that makes it 80. Divide that, it's 40. So, you know, probably by 2035, 40, we're going to have some major things. And I would predict that in the next decade, something will hit us. It won't be pandemic. It'll be something else. Big weather event, which is due to climate change, sea level rise, you name it. And none of us have got our heads there as seriously as we need to. So, well done, congratulations. I think it is, but I'd like to see more shock and awe photographs, because you've got to capture people's attention.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's your view, not mine.
I'd like to move.
I was clear on that, Giraffe, right from the first place. I said I disagreed with you.
Well, you get the last word, so you know, I want to make sure that's not the last word in all of this.
If you speak after him, you get the last word and you encourage him there. I'll circumvent this by moving the recommendation as written there, if you'll care, Chair, with some additional words. This receives the Climate Action Community Campaign staff report. I think I'd like to add to it and supports the implementation of all the initiatives the report envisages.
Move that, and we have a seconder here, so we have a mover and a seconder with those additions. You get to speak again, Councillor.
Well, I had my say before, but just simply that this is a part of it. This is one piece of the jigsaw that we have to play on this very important game. And I have to say more in your camp on this, Chair, than I am, for it's not a small thing. We are facing extinction of species. There's no doubt about that. And someone mentioned the sea. Well, it never gets mentioned. But I learned some years ago, to my horror, that one of the biggest carbon sinks on the planet is the ocean. And as the ocean absorbs carbon, it acidifies. And it's the acidification of the ocean which is causing the bleaching of the great coral reef natural assets. But even more worrying is that science hasn't yet quite worked out what is the tipping point for a number of species in terms of what they can live in acid water. And one tips and they're all gone. So we could be looking at mass extinctions of species in the oceans within a period of time. That is Armageddon. So I don't underestimate the significance of this. I don't think you can underplay it, and I think we do a disservice to the public if we tell them it ain't going to be that bad. We're always going to have green, we're always going to have plenty of water, because that's what the plans are, while nature's got other plans, let me tell you that. And deeply troubling. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Martin?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to commend also, because I didn't earlier, the survey. I thought it's very well framed and very cleverly framed. It uses a lot of prepositions like how and what and who, rather than loading, you know, why don't yous, and it's suitably neutral. I think it's equally well positioned to give us an understanding of the public's perception of our role as an organisation in taking a lead on this, which is our strategic goal, which will help the long-term plan, and equally the appetite of our communities to pay for that role if it is to be taken on in that way. I don't want to get into doom and gloom scenarios. I could probably take Rick's and up at about 5 levels, and some other stories that I could share, but just in terms of the imagery, I do invite you to review that in light of the comments you've had today. You know, the floods, the erosion, the coastal erosion, the homoana, not for shock and awe purposes, but I'm just a little bit concerned that the arid plain may be taken by some as we're spinning climate change as an excuse to water storage. It's a bigger issue than that, and it affects everyone, not just our rural communities. So just have a little think about how that do you want to avoid this future is portrayed. Thank you.
Now, every councillor has spoken. Anyone want to
Speak
speak?
to the motion, please. Could you just repeat, please, the amended motion? Because I agree with the motion as put, but there was something that I thought Councillor Barker said I'm not that comfortable with.
Well,
I just said you want something.
The last, the addition
let me
of.
just go back to, I wrote it down here somewhere.
No, Leanne wrote it down.
Leanne, what have you
read it
got?
out.
Yep. So the Hawke's Bay Regional Council receives and notes the Climate Action Communications Campaign staff report and supports the implementation of all the initiatives the report envisages.
Yeah, that's what I thought it said. Yeah, can I just test that? So I probably missed the word support earlier. So it shows our good intent and all that. I'm just concerned that we're obliging the council to pick up what comes of your survey, even if 3 people, reply, not 800 from your survey or something. So is it
supporting the survey?
Not the way I interpret it, so I think it is in relation to the comms campaign, not what comes next.
Okay, all right, thanks, Rick. So apology, I missed the word support.
Are there any other people that wish to speak? Otherwise, put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. It's carried, thank you. Now, we've got 10 minutes to lunch, so I'm just looking for an item that we might get through in 10 minutes. So we could do discussions on minor items, because we've got 2 people that want to speak, and they have 5 minutes. Thank you, guys, that was really good. And that 3 Waters, Mike Paku?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No more than 5 minutes.
Thank you. Won't be. So just in regards to the upcoming workshops with Mana Whenua, Tangata Whenua, in regards to the 3 Waters. So for our Tangata Whenua representatives on our RPC and our Māori Standing Committee, many of us also sit on a number of other local territorial authorities. And basically we're going to have this conversation numerous times throughout these various bodies. And so for some of us, we're going to be fatigued in regards to the amount of consultation that we'll be having to engage in, having to hear and have this pretty much what it will be the same conversation repeated again and again. One thing that does stand out for me is that Hawke's Bay Regional Council is basically the only entity that, if you like, doesn't have a vested interest in the outcome around assets, as compared to the rest, who all have a vested interest in how that falls. I was kind of hoping that Hawke's Bay Regional Council would take the lead, not too dissimilar to what we've just spoken about in regards to a more of a regional approach to engaging tangata whenua, and if you like, invite all of the local territorial authority Māori advisory committees along with the RPC to a workshop and see if we can reach a agreement where we were able to establish a smaller representative group that encompasses all the various territorial authority Māori advisory groups, along with regional, and just have the conversation once for us. I understand that for the territorial authorities that may be slightly different. They are required to have the conversation, but for us, we actually need to hear it once.
Thank you, Mike. I think James has heard you and I've heard you. So,
Do you want to make a comment?
No comment. No make comments on matters arising. Perry's heard you too, and Perry can take it on board. Craig, Lake Onslow, saw that on TV as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just noting the government's announcement a week or so ago and from the Minister of Energy and significantly resources around their exploration of a potential large water storage facility and a hydroelectrical new pumping system, etc., down there in Otago. I just wanted to note the significance of that. The money the government has allocating monies to examine all the barriers to and examine that business case itself. But I just want to note that it's good to see that the government is open to discussions around large water storage projects. Now, I mean, this one is very significant if it was to proceed, in some shape or form, and it does quite possibly come up against government land holdings via dock, etc. I understand if it was to be fully inundated. So it's nothing more than just noting that, and I'm keeping a watchful brief on it as well, where the government lands, and this is only a comment item here, but I'd be asking of the chair, the CEO, as the government progresses this, we just keep an eye on that and anything that comes from it that may be of interest to Hawke's Bay.
Thank you, Craig. We're going to break for lunch, so just after lunch at 1:30, so you're going to have a little bit more time. Yeah, no, but there's nothing we can do in 10 minutes. So
1:30 sounds great.
1:30 we're back. We have the future farming team at 1:30, and then we have the report from the Marley committee and a report from any councillor. So if you've got anything, nobody's put their hand up yet. We've got those 3 items before we move to public excluded. Okay, we break for lunch now.
Oh, thank you.